The numbers that were tattooed on every prisoner's arm at Auschwitz were actually IBM inventory codes. Before the Holocaust could happen, the Nazis needed to find all the Jews, and to do that they created a bespoke census. The company that built the census equipment for them was called Die Homeg. This company was 85% owned by IBM, and it was IBM punch card machinery that was used both for this census and in the concentration camps themselves. Every concentration camp had a Hollerith department, which is literally named after the IBM software. The founder of IBM even accepted a medal from Hitler in 1937. He was given the Merit Cross of the German Eagle with Star for work in bettering world trade relations. He wore it, he kept it, he never apologized. The Chase National Bank doubled its business in Paris during the Nazi occupation. The bank kept its Paris branch open during the entire Nazi occupation. Winthrop W. Aldrich ran the Chase National Bank from 1933 to 1953. He was the son of the US Senator Nelson Aldrich and the brother-in-law of John D. Rockefeller. The manager of the Paris branch of the Chase Bank was a man called Carlos Niederman. In May 1942, he wrote to his supervisors in Manhattan and he described the business environment in occupied Paris as booming. That's the word he used, booming. A 1944 US Treasury investigation confirmed that the Chase Bank maintained accounts for the German embassy and German firms, cooperated with Nazi instructions to freeze and confiscate the accounts of Jewish customers, and sold discounted Reichmarks to German Americans with the proceeds going to the Nazi government. 1944 US Treasury investigation found all of this, but no Chase executive was ever charged. The investigation was shelved, and when the war ended, Chase hired a new vice president in charge of foreign loans. His name was Thomas McKittrick, and he had spent the previous 6 years running the Bank of International Settlements. That would be the institution that processed looted Nazi gold throughout the war. Chase Bank hired him in 1946 and never offered any statement about this. He had started working at the Bank for International Settlements in May 1939, 3 months after Germany occupied Czechoslovakia. Under his presidency, the Bank of International Settlements operated as a clearing institution for both the Axis and the Allies. McKittrick is on record in 1943 calling Emil Pohl, the Nazi economist, his friend. He described Pohl as having conducted business in a manner giving no cause for any criticism whatsoever. McKittrick also has an OSS file number, 644. He met regularly with Allen Dulles. After the war, Allen Dulles went on to become the director of the CIA. He's one of the most contentious figures in American history. During the war, though, he was head of the OSS station in Bern. McKittrick was providing Dulles with information. The same man who was clearing funds for the Nazis and calling their top economist his friend was also meeting and providing intelligence to the Americans who said that they were fighting this. The Holocaust didn't actually start in 1933. The architecture that made it possible was built much earlier, and it started on Wall Street. After World War I, Germany was broke. The Versailles Treaty demanded reparations that the country simply could not pay. So a committee of Wall Street bankers organised by JP Morgan decided that they would be the ones to manage Germany's debt. If you push back even further, you find that JP Morgan had financed World War I as well. They had helped write these conditions in the Versailles Treaty. Then they had lent Germany the money to pay the bill to them. The bank sat on all sides of the table during both world wars, collecting commissions on all sides and deciding the treaty terms. JP Morgan's network had helped create the first institution that would manage the reparations, the BIS. The first president of the BIS was an American banker, Gates McGraw, former chairman of the Federal Reserve and the Bank of New York. And the Bank for International Settlements had a special feature written into its founding charter that gave it immunity from seizure, even in wartime, even for Nazi gold. In March 1939, after Germany occupied Prague, Montague Norman, the governor of the Bank of England and a BIS board member, authorised the transfer of £6 million in Czech gold from the Bank of England into the Reichsbank. The BIS still operates today. It's based in Basel. It's called the Central Bank of Central Banks. It's a cartel. And of course, Standard Oil of New Jersey, the company that was set up by John D. Rockefeller and that later became ExxonMobil and still exists today, they sent fuel to the Nazis. By the time Germany went to war in 1939, there were 5 main channels that directly injected Wall Street capital into the Nazi economy. They ran through the bank, through the clearinghouse, through the oil cartel, through the technology company, and through a pair of car manufacturers. Car manufacturing being an obvious front for war technology, for weapons. Now the lawyers. Sullivan and Cromwell are a New York-based law firm where Alan Dulles and John Dulles were both partners. Their clients included IG Farben, Crump AG, J. Henry Schroeder Banking Corporation, and Standard Oil's German interests. Alan Dulles also sat on the board of the J. Henry Schroeder Banking Corporation in New York. John McCloy is an excellent example of how the revolving door between Wall Street bankers and the Nazis actually worked. He started his career as a lawyer with Swain and Moore, representing IG Farben in their US legal proceedings. By 1941, he was the Assistant Secretary of War under Henry Stimson. By 1947, he was president of the World Bank. By 1952, he was US High Commissioner for Germany. And by 1960, he was the chairman of the Chase Manhattan Bank. On the 31st of January 1951, in his capacity as High Commissioner, McCloy announced clemency decisions for 89 German war criminals. He released 32 of them. Of 89 clemency appeals, McCloy granted concessions in 79 cases. Out of 104 defendants convicted in the subsequent Nuremberg trials, he reduced sentences for 74 of them. General Telford Taylor was the chief counsel for the prosecution at Nuremberg, and he wrote publicly that these computations were a blow to the principles of international law and the concepts of humanity for which we fought the war. All of the men that McCloy freed were literally the German counterparts of the American firms that I've just referenced. The restoration of these industrialists was the completion of a cycle. The Third Reich did not appear from nowhere. It had been financed by American capital. The banking families that had first capitalized on the slave plantation economy in the South used their accumulated capital to build the merchant banks of Manhattan, and then in the 1920s they recycled money into Weimar Germany and then through the Dawes and Young's plans to increase their wealth. We need to reconsider how we view World War II and who won it. For most of the war, Britain, France and Russia were the allies, the 3 countries that came together to fight back this enemy that was being funded by American bankers and Standard Oil. We get told that the Nazis were defeated and that the United States saved the day. But what was the outcome? Who really won? What came next? The Marshall Plan, Bretton Woods, dollar domination, Israel. Why are we accepting a version of the story where the winner, the good guy, saves the day by dropping nuclear bombs on civilians and giving amnesty to Nazi scientists? Let's be clear, Nazi racial science didn't inspire later American eugenics. American slavery eugenics had inspired Nazi Germany. And the same people who funded those eugenics programs, the Rockefeller Foundation and the Carnegie Institution, are named in the cartel bankers list. It is American capitalists who built Nazi infrastructure. It is American eugenics programs that inspired the Third Reich. And the regime that emerged in 1945 was not a Nazi regime, but it was entirely continuous with the same capital and institutional networks that had enabled the Nazi regime, and who wrote the rules of the post-war world accordingly.